We're going to be talking about culture today, but I'd like to come at it a little bit obliquely. And then after we've covered the oblique part, I'd like to get all of us involved in the discussion about what is culture and why do we care. I don't think there's any concept that is quite so misunderstood or bandied around or broadly confused as the idea of culture. But to see if we can put a fine point on it this morning, I'd like to introduce a quote to you and then use that as a means of kind of opening the door on the discussion of what is culture and why do we care. So here's the quote. A fish examines everything but the water in which he swims. A fish examines everything but the water in which he swims. Now that's a kind of a seductive mental picture. A fish swimming around, looking at the sea floor, looking at other fish, looking at a crab scuttling across the sand, looking at the sunlight playing on the water, being diffused through the water. There are a million things that a fish can look at, but the thing he's unaware of, and yet the thing that controls almost everything about his life, is the water in which he swims. Now, if we consider culture in that light, perhaps we can begin to see that culture is the unnoticed, invisible, intangible set of assumptions which control and influence almost every aspect of our daily lives, especially in our corporate culture. And for that reason, it might be more important than we've ever stopped to realize. So let's take a minute and first talk about what is culture. What are the specifics of it? And then let's see if we can begin to surmise why it might be important for all of us to consider. What is culture? Well, it's probably a lot of things. If you were thinking about culture in the United States, it might be the underlying assumption that whenever you walk into a room, you reach out at about elbow level and feel around and you'll find the light switch. And when you switch it up, the lights go on. Now that's a cultural assumption that goes so deep that it's entrenched in the building codes. You also know that left is hot and right is cold. And you also know whether you turn the faucet clockwise or counterclockwise to turn it on or off. Again, cultural assumptions so deep they're built into the building codes. You can probably tell me from memory what color the lights are in the traffic light on the corner near your home. The top one, red. Bottom one, green. Middle one, yellow. Cultural assumptions so deep they're buried in the codes of the city and the laws and the statutes under which you live your day-to-day life. Have you thought about them lately? Have you thought about where you reach for the light switch? Absolutely not. And when you go to work, the same rules apply. Culture is the way we live at work. Culture consists of how we communicate in the office, or fail to. What we say, the way we say it, the content of all of our stories that we use to understand who we are and how we operate. Culture could be how we sell and what we sell. Culture could be how we do business day to day, how we negotiate with our clients or fail to. How we view the relationship between us and our clients as perhaps it's a transaction, perhaps it's a relationship. Perhaps we mean to put our own skin in the game and stay with that client for a period of 30 years. Perhaps we intend to make as much as we can out of this transaction and move on. Culture. It's invisible, it's intangible, but it's omnipresent. It is the air we breathe and the water in which we swim. Let's go further. Maybe it's the way we position ourselves in the marketplace. Maybe it's the way we see ourselves in the marketplace and the way we see the marketplace overall. Maybe it's how we define a win. Maybe it's how we play when we've had a win. All of these things, I think, would add up to the layered, very complex set of assumptions and agreements that we use to form our workplace, the water in which we swim. Now, what does all this mean? Well, It's probably got a certain importance, but maybe we have to look a little bit to find out what that importance is. Do you suppose, in the financial services industry perhaps, in the United States today, that there is sort of a cultural set of implicit assumptions about risk and about fiduciary responsibility and about the willingness to take risks with somebody else's money and the need for responsibility so that when we take risks that are untoward and inappropriate that we might have to pay with our jobs or with the financial soundness of our company? Do you suppose that that set of assumptions has gotten to be rather wide and rather broad and rather freewheeling? Well, you know, if such a set of assumptions existed, that would be a formula for a near financial collapse. Oh, that's right. We're having a near financial collapse. And I think that one of the reasons is that the set of cultural assumptions that we've used in the financial industry in this country over the last 20 years have gotten very broad and very freewheeling and very relaxed and very laissez-faire, and a lot of people are failing because of it. A lot of banks that used to be renowned in the world for their soundness are no longer sound. A lot of companies that were renowned for their long history are no more. A lot of individuals who were respected as the leaders of their very, very sound, very, very solid branded companies are no longer working. And we, the American taxpayers, are now the stockholders in all of those companies because the culture of disinterest in fundamental fiduciary principles has become so widespread. Why is culture important? Because it's the air we breathe, the water in which we swim, the landscape in which we conduct our business. And when that landscape is turned head over heels, we all pay a price. So I'd suggest to you that that's a perfect example of culture by default. It's been allowed to fail. It's been allowed to fade away. It's been allowed to turn into whatever the market will bear. And in place of a culture of fiduciary responsibility, care for the client's best interest, a situation where ethics would control over everything else, the greatest good for all concerned, we've now gotten a cultural landscape in which how can I make the most on this deal and then head out before I have to pay the piper has become the cultural rule of the day. Well, now, if you're concerned about how to build a culture for your company that will take you to the stars and make it possible for you to leave the company in better shape than you found it and to leave with your reputation intact, maybe we should talk. If we can be of help to you as you build, evolve, and maintain your culture in a better direction, we'd love for you to call us. Thanks.